Welcome to the show, everyone. As you all know, I love to talk about everybody else but me on my show. And I'm so excited about the new year, and I'm excited about bringing on my first guest. We're live on Facebook, so I do want to say hi to everybody out there. Like us and follow us. We're going to share the show later on. My first guest is Scott Fischer, and he's the owner of Options for Senior Living. Welcome to the show. I want you to tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Thanks, Carol. It's great to be here. I am a graduate from Arizona State University, went to nursing school back in the 80s, was one of the first men through the program back in the day.
Coolio.
Entered a career in nursing for about 20 years, and at a crossroads, it was apparent to me that I wanted to do something on my own for the first time and be a business owner and use my background and experience. And I was working particularly at that time with people who were suffering from the psychiatric component of their dementia and lots of trouble and issues with all that. And that was what sparked me to have an interest in caring for families and seniors as they work through the aging journey. And so we launched Options for Senior Living in 2003 to be a service for families where they could get guidance and professional consultation and walk them through the process of finding the right senior living when a loved one was unsafe to be at home any longer.
So I like to do this on my show, and that's ask questions that you didn't ask me to ask you.
Okay.
So I have a couple that I want to do that with you. And that is, number one, why is it so important that someone who finds himself in this situation where mom or dad has to move and going into an assisted living or some kind of a different living situation, to go through someone like you?
Well, most people Google everything, and their first response is go to the internet, get the information. What you're getting is biased information, often from the providers themselves, or you get it from some online operators that provide leads to these senior living providers, but they've never been visited by the people that are making those referrals. As a local operator, we walk through and have personally viewed, toured, and keep up on the healthcare records and the staffing situations that are in these facilities. So we offer a personalized, individualized plan of care for families, and we personally walk through all of them with you and guide you through the whole process, and not just do it via the internet or phone calls, or you feel like you've been sold. And a lot of people walk away from the experience feeling they've been sold by senior living.
Sold, or the worst part is probably going into it and getting into it and then finding out that wasn't a good right place for the parent.
Oh, absolutely. Assisted living has lots of nuances to it. There's a lot of things that aren't told up front. The state licenses assisted living on 3 levels of care. Well, not all assisted livings are licensed for all 3 levels of care. So what that might mean is they sell you on a beautiful situation for your mom, and a year from now they tell you she no longer can stay because she's too much care. Well, they didn't tell you that you would have another move potentially in front of you. And one of the first questions that we ask families all the time is, would you like a solution that gets you to the finish line, one solution, or are you okay with doing this in pieces? But at least they know up front what they're going to be facing, as opposed to being told unexpectedly that mom or dad may have outgrown their ability to care for them.
Now, you work valley-wide. This is a free service to the families out there. So, I don't know why people, they don't know. I think that's what I said to you before you came on, was people don't realize that there are people like you that exist. So they don't know what they don't know. That's what I love about my show, is it's great information for people out there. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's someone that you know. That's what networking is all about. Tell them about that. But the other thing is if you're dealing with someone now, maybe you don't even live here and your mom lives here or what have you, vice versa. Put this number in your phone, because one thing I know for sure, it usually happens at the worst time, where you just are scrambling, and that's not good.
This happens to be the busiest time of the year for us after the holidays. Kids and their parents don't live together in Phoenix. About a third of our kids and parents are together, 2/3 are not. And so a lot of times the parents were snowbirds and they've now stopped snowbirding in Minnesota. It's too cold to be there all the year. So they're here year round. The kids are visiting, and they go, oh my gosh.
Yeah, what happened?
Something's changed.
What's wrong?
So we're very busy right now, being the first of the year, because that's exactly the experience people are having.
Put the number in your phone. It's 602-845-1320. You can check them out on their website. It's options with an S for seniorliving.com. They're A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, and in 2022 they were nominated and almost got it, you said, for the Ethics Award. And believe me, that's very hard for people to get. So you came about on this because you were in the nursing industry and you realized there was something. Is that how?
It was really a need. As I was in my practice, I was visiting particularly seniors who were suffering from anxiety, depression, the different effects of their dementia. And I was walking through senior living facilities for the first time going, how did people get here? And you hear stories of small homes where everybody's speaking Romanian or everybody's speaking a language that is not native to their parents, and they go, well, how did this happen? And so I was curious about all that. There was a new industry literally evolving in the 90s and the early 2000s, and that's this industry, the senior referral and placement industry. So we are completely unregulated, we're unlicensed, people don't know about us. They often get told about us by a hospital discharge planner, a social worker, a pastor at a church, and that's how they get involved with us, but there's nobody overseeing the competence of people like me, and so there's a lot of buyer beware when you meet someone like me or a business that's been in this space. Find out how long they've been at it. What was their background? How? Because anybody could be an expert today, and that's
right.
And you don't know what they were doing last year.
Just for the credibility, I'm going to tell everybody that you also had your own radio show here for quite some time.
I did.
You did, and being that he was nominated in 2022 for the Ethics Award from Better Business Bureau, that shows you right there that you want to call somebody who is reputable, and this is what's important, because seniors and their families, especially when they're in a bad place, maybe emotionally, they get ripped off, right?
Families are very vulnerable during this time. I happen to be an adult child where my mom is aging and my brothers and I are helping her walk the walk, and my friends are dealing with it. My in-laws are in the same situation. My wife and I are walking it through. So when you encounter people that are in crisis or in stress, they don't always make the best decisions. It's hard to make decisions when you're feeling that kind of pressure. So we really try to reach out to families as they're experiencing the changes and talk to them before the crisis and help them know the path to take before crisis hits.
It is, it's truly, I know, because I've seen it myself personally, and people listen up, because being proactive is so important, and this is a free service to you, so it just makes sense to have a consultation with him, find out, what do you do, an assessment, how does that work?
We typically like to meet in the family's home, and if the person who's going to be placed can join in the conversation, that's best for us, because I can add to the assessment by visualizing and engaging with them. Sometimes that's disruptive to the person, and they might have that feelings of suspiciousness and paranoia that come with their dementia. So we have to play that by ear. But ideally, we meet face to face and then lay out a plan from there.
We're going to go to a break, and when we come back, we're going to do this further, because you know what, folks? This information that you're hearing, whether it's you or for someone that you know, it's so important, and to be proactive. Don't do it when it's too late. It's really hard to do that for everybody. Now, you can give them a call at 602-845-1320. They are valley-wide. It's a free service to you. It's options with an S for seniorliving.com. Hang tight. We'll be back in just a minute. Did you like it so far?
That was fast.
Yeah, very.
That's awesome.
Because I'm with you.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it was great.
Insane, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, good.
So, but we're still live right now on Facebook. So, it's okay.
Okay.
Because they love it. They like that it is, sort of like the background of things that go on here.
No, I think just easy. easy to talk to.
Exactly, and I think when we're done, I'll tell you what my thoughts are in terms of what I think too.
Okay.
I know you are a professional at what you do and how you had your show and everything like that, but I'm just gonna tell you what I think,
Sure.
and then we can go from there.
Okay.
And stories, okay?
Yeah.
That's really, really big. We may not get one today, but
Yeah.
at some point, you know, getting one in is always really nice. They like stories, right?
Yeah.
And so you've been doing this since how long?
2003.
2003.
22 years. We're finishing our 22nd
Wow.
year now. Now my kids are with me.
Yeah.
You know, it's a worthy business. The kids now my
Yeah.
2 girls want to take it over for us.
Right. And there's not I don't know how many companies there are out there like you, and I'm sure there's a ton of people that are do it privately and things. But I think the idea of knowing also the scary stories, that's also really important because they get people that take advantage.
Because we were unregulated back in 2010, I started with a few of my colleagues at trade association to establish best practices and a code of ethics for the industry. That group now, 14 years later, is still strong. It gave way for us to take it nationally, and we now have influence in, I don't know, 15 or other states. So the buyer beware thing's real because there's a lot of guys like us that prey on people,
Yeah,
and they're on the vulnerable. And
in a lot of the other areas too, where you know people want to stay in their home and they have people that come in, and
Yep.
there's all sorts of people that are, you know, that's
there's
a whole
lot
other
of
story.
trapdoors in that story. Yeah,
I know,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know.
yeah. So there's a lot of things so wherever you take it, there's a lot to talk about because a lot of the things we wrote as the best practices were the things that people were doing that were ugly, unethical, grimy, dirty.
That's a show in itself.
Yeah, that's a
Right.
whole story.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And that's, I'll tell you what I mean when I'm
Okay.
done. Okay,
All right.
here we go. So you can hear, this is Doc, the owner of Hypnotic One, the
Yeah.
guy that's my longest running address. That's his ad that he did.
Okay.
You know, so you'll see all the ads, all of them during my show are for my people,
Your
which is
guys.
kind of cool.
Okay.
So it's all my show, not the whole hour. Not, I got a whole hour.
Yeah.
So welcome back, everyone. We're talking with Scott Fischer, and he's the owner of Options for Senior Living, and we were talking during the break about how important it is for people to make sure that they get a reputable person that they're working with, and these are people that are A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, also nominated for the Ethics Award, which is very hard to get. Congratulations on that. In 2022. You have other things that you've done too to protect people, but we want to talk to you all about the importance of doing this and taking this information and making sure that you're proactive. I think that's something that you want to really get into the listeners' heads is don't wait. Let's have that conversation now.
Please do. I've been doing a presentation for years for groups, and I call it Storm Clouds on the Horizon. And it's just a metaphor for what happens here in August when the mornings are starting and it's hot and it's muggy and you see a couple of clouds off in the distance over the superstitions. And by noon, there's more of them coming together, and then when you're driving home from work at 4:30, you're in the middle of a dust storm, and they call it a haboob, right? It's a mess. Well, aging is similar. There's a lot of things that are happening in the lives of our loved ones where they're missing medicine, or you'll find medicine pills on the floor, or they've had a few falls, or mom got lost driving home, or missing appointments, but then using the ER, or the funny one is always, if they know the name of the fireman on what day the firemen work, because they've been there so often to pick them up off the ground, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So when these things are starting to converge in people's lives, that's the idea that haboob is coming, like there's a storm cloud getting ready to rip. And so if kids will see those things happening in the lives of their parents, then intervene sooner than later. I mean, this is the time to call us before there's a crisis so that we can either get more resources in, we can help put plans together in place. There's a number of things we can do to make life simpler, more efficient, safer, and safety is the bottom line. As soon as mom and dad aren't safe at home, now we've got to make decisions for them. I've told my mother this for years, and I tell this to all my clients. We never want to do anything to you always within 4, as long as you're making good, safe decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And when the decision making gets unsafe, then as kids we have to intervene or be the powers of attorney or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, though. I mean, and I'm sure I know the answer already, but for people that are dealing with this, okay, it's a free service. It's so important for people to understand that there's people out here like this. But the problem is, and I'm going to say that I think, is that the conversation between child and parent, I don't care how old you are, you're still their child. And the parent, is that the hardest thing that the first thing that comes up? I can't talk to my mom. I can't tell her what to do.
Exactly. The role reversal is a real thing that happens in this journey, where the parents ultimately let go of their own decision making, and that's a very hard thing to do because you've been telling your kids what to do since whenever, right? But there comes a point in time where, as I remember my parents having to make hard conversations with me when I was a teenager, as I was becoming more mouthy and more independent and making more decisions or wanting to make those, they had to intervene. Well, we have to as kids sometimes intervene too. So the earlier you have these conversations in love, frequently with your parents, and say, I know you don't want to talk about our finances, but nobody gets out of here. We're all on the same trail to a end of life somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to accept the reality that there's a finality to this life.
I also want to mention, as I was thinking, you were sitting here talking about the children's conversation, the adult children, but guess what? There's also the husband or the wife, because it could be that the children are not involved.
If the parents are still, their marriage is still intact and the relationship, I can't imagine. I can't imagine the intensity of the fear or the anxiety that they would feel when they have been sleeping next to their partner for 64 years, 70 years, and the next day you're telling them that you have to place them. Like, do you know what he's going to feel like being alone, not having his wife next to him?
Mm-hmm.
That I went through a horrible divorce 20-something years ago, and one of the lessons I took from it was she was gone, and you had to learn to live alone at that point. And it gave me some insight to what my clients were feeling at 50 years, at 60 years.
Mm-hmm.
That sorrow, that emptiness, that loneliness was only magnified so many times more for those guys that have. So husbands and wives have promised each other, I'll never put you in one of those places. We can always stay together. But safety is going to dictate that. Dementia is going to dictate that.
Oh, absolutely. Now write this number down. Again, maybe it's you or someone that you know. These are reputable people that you can count on. Their phone number is 602-845-1320. They do work valley-wide, and it is a free service to you. It makes sense to have that consultation early, not when things are going awry, which is when you mostly get those calls you said to me. So, when is it time?
When is it time? If you go to the conversation I was mentioning about the storm clouds, as I go through that with people, we start identifying, as I mentioned, some of those key parts that are happening. I'll often sit and ask the adult child, usually sitting with mom, it's usually the adult daughter. Unfortunately, the girls get the brunt of it. I'll say, well, what are you doing for mom in the week? And they'll say, well, I make sure she gets her shopping done, and we get her, I set up her bed set once a week, and I take her to the doctor, and da-da-da-da. And I go, are you tired? She goes, I'm exhausted. I have my own kids, and this and that, whatever. And I say, well, Mom, you're already in assisted living. Like, you can't do this on your own without your daughter here. So we have to honor that she's exhausted, providing the assisted living you're already getting. Well, I know it's in your own home, but you're already there. And so when you move to assisted living, they're going to do the same 4 or 5 things for you, and that's all they're going to do. It's not a nursing home. It's not wheelchairs everywhere. And
It's different today.
No, it's a different lifestyle. If they take advantage of the opportunity a little sooner than later, many seniors find a new season of life, not just playing out their strength, but of life.
I do think that a lot of people don't realize how assisted living has, changed so much.
It's really evolved.
And it's not about, it's not about I don't even know what I'm trying to say here, where, the old days where, they reach a certain age, okay, you're going into a home. Right?
Those days were very institutional.
Yeah, it was,
that way.
and now it's different. I mean, they have the games for them. They have so much, but what you do, and I think we've talked a lot about this. I've got to come back. I'm going to go full circle around now, because you have gone to probably every one of them here, and you've researched them, right?
Right.
So you've done the work, the hard work, and when you have a conversation with the people and you're going to decide where they want to go, you already probably know which place would be right for them because you've been there, right?
That's right. We've done our homework and built this inventory of resources for families. So as they're telling me their story and I'm getting the lay of the land, those solutions are already coming to mind. There are some assisted living facilities, some new ones that are beautiful and they're monsters and they're a couple of hundred apartments and they're huge. Well, for some families, that's way too. Can you imagine mom who's lived alone for all these years walking into a restaurant for the first time and there's 150 people? She'll just feel fish out of water. So a smaller environment might be a better solution for her. Vice versa, and so we customize this based on the knowledge of that inventory, so that when we go out and see 3 or 4 or 5, if we've done our homework right, we're pretty much on the target with looking at 3 or 4 or 5 opportunities, and then one fits for that family.
Well, the main thing is that when you realize, and you said you're very busy now because this is a great time. Everybody's just seen mom and dad, and they realize something's off. If you had that question in any way, these are people that you can call that can help you have that conversation too. You go in there and you do the assessment, but you also have the conversation for them, which I'm sure is much easier.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of times a third party or an unrelated third party helps break the ice. The senior doesn't want to necessarily hear from their loved one that way, or they're resisting. There's some denial or some, and the kids don't always know what to say. And so we can give them words and the language and help facilitate the conversation. I think about one of the best experiences I ever had, if I can tell you real quick.
We got 1 minute.
We got a minute, they'll be done. I was contacted by a gentleman here locally who was a financial advisor. His mom lived up in Prescott. It was time, and she had had a number of falls. His brothers came from around the world. One came from Australia, one came from Alabama. He lived here locally, and I worked with the 3 of them on a Saturday to bring mom to her next place in life. And it was just the most beautiful, loving, 3 brothers loved their mom, bringing her into the next season. And I just got to be a part of it. It was just a really awesome experience for them.
And it should be an awesome experience. It would be nice, but I'm sure that's not the main thing that happens. Most of the time, it's out of fear. It's out of, oh my God, what's wrong? We've got to get this done, and that's not good. Their phone number to call is 602-845-1320. Check them out. It is options with an S for seniorliving.com.